First, we must increase vaccinations among the unvaccinated with new vaccination requirements. So, the time for waiting is over. This is not about freedom or personal choice, because I have that federal authority.
This isn't about COVID any more than the Patriot Act was about Al-Qaeda. It's about government asserting more control over your lives, your rights, your properties, and in this case, your bodily autonomy. And it's not going to work. This is the problem with government. And the reality is there's only one way to fight back against this, and it's mass non-compliance. Government makes up less than 1% of the population. If even 5 or 10% of Americans simply refuse to comply, especially during this labor shortage, all of this goes away. Government has to take a step back and realize that they can't just run roughshod over the American people.
If these dumbass zombies, if these lemmings were fucking dying of starvation, they would be stopping straight away. And that's the problem when you have an affluent state that can still, appease these fucking lemmings. You get the supporters. Like, in many ways, like, as much as everyone wants to blame, the Klaus Schwabs of the world, man, I blame the fucking lemming that's wearing the mask next door.
Like, I'm not interested in integrating Bitcoin into the state. I'm interested in Bitcoin displaying how powerless the state is. And so I much rather prefer a method of having them attack Bitcoin, showing how incompetent and stupid they are. This antiquated system's fucked. We have all these geriatrics that are making decisions to prolong their health by a couple of years at the sacrifice of the youth. This is all wrong and messed up. And it's time for us to dignify ourselves and say, we don't want this system. So to me, Bitcoin allows for us to attack the economic system, which is the most important component of how their whole system functions. And as it falls apart, I would much rather have us pretty much say, yeah, you guys are on fire, we're not going to save you, and too bad.
It's just very important that the debt ceiling be raised in a timely fashion so that the United States can pay its bills when and as they come due. That's a critically important thing. The failure to do that is something that could result in severe reactions, severe damage to the economy and to the financial markets, and it's just not something that we should contemplate. I think we can all agree that the United States shouldn't default on any of its obligations, should pay them when and as due, and that no one should assume that the Fed or anyone else can protect the markets or the economy in the event of a failure, fully protect in the event of a failure. To make sure that we do pay those. That's when they're due.
Good. What more is there to wait for? What more do you need to see? We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
Alrighty, welcome to Toxic Airwaves. Wrong one. Stoked on tonight's episode. We're talking about debt default, how we're rooting for it, and yes, I'm stoked. Pal is wrong. A debt default would be the best thing that could possibly happen to the United States, at least for the people. We need to get over with this, and it's going to happen inevitably. And it's kind of like the way I see it is the inflation, central banking is like a drug. And postponing the debt default is kind of like postponing getting off the drug, getting off of heroin. It's not better for anybody to continue on heroin. It's best to get off it as soon as possible. But yeah, how you doing tonight, Skeef?
Doing good. I loved that clip of Mr. Powell. He looked particularly scared in that one. He's been, I don't know. I like watching videos of him where he's scared and doesn't have any idea what he's doing. And just most of them. It's pretty fun to watch. But, and that Kaysen clip, man, I love Eric Kaysen.
Yeah, Kaysen's one of my all-time favorites. And yeah, well, speaking of fucking lemmings,
exactly.
I heard you encountered one at the farmer's market.
That was by far my highest performing tweet ever, and it was the result of me going to a farmer's market. I went up to the beef booth, and there's a very nice older lady there, and in front of me was some yuppie in her 20s, wearing a mask. And I was even having a little trouble. Like the lady was kind of mumbling, but also wearing a mask, but also obviously semi-retarded. And I don't think the lady running the booth was even trying to like make a point or anything. But she just finally goes, I can't understand you. And she just like told her, she's like, you know, take it off or shop somewhere else. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I can't understand what you're saying. Cause I don't know. It was one of those I thought 5 people would like. And then, you know, it's at like 700 and counting or something like that. I forget, but it was, nothing close to an influencer. That's a lot for me.
Yeah. And I think you got like 600 likes or something on it, a bunch of retweets.
Yeah.
You struck a nerve on the culture war pretty good. And I think that's where a lot of the engagement comes from.
Could be.
I had a tweet that took off today too, which I wasn't expecting. I saw that in Detroit, they were doing some sort of like community gardening effort and had enough food to grow like 2,000 or enough food for like 2,000 homes, which I thought was pretty dope. Like that's something that I'm super stoked on, is that idea of you know, doing the local sourcing food locally. And apparently a lot of people like that I was bullish on Detroit, but I kind of see, you know, Detroit's, you know, an interesting story. And if you've ever gotten into Kelly Lannon's work, it's something that he talks about quite a bit, was how the way that we organize cities today is based on the way that Detroit was doing it with, you know, the highway system and building out these ridiculous suburbs. And it's part of the reason why the city collapsed. And, you know, the city planning is just done so poorly today. It's going to be interesting to see that happen. And, you know, Kelly talks a lot about Phoenix and because that's where he's located. But I think we're going to see that in a lot of places. And, you know, what Detroit has done since they've collapsed is they've completely renovated and changed the city a lot. And they're doing projects like that right in the middle of the city, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah. And definitely check out his newsletter. It's pretty awesome. I love when Bitcoiners have, you know, like stuff that they're passionate about that I don't know anything about. And then I can just totally hitchhike on all their hard work and just read about it and get it the easy way. Yeah.
So Skeef, you're apparently a influencer according to Lurk. So
yeah, I'll be doing a class on how to build your following, which is it's going to be called Get Banned every 6 weeks, and so you get up to about 200 followers and then go back to 0 about every 6 or 8 weeks, and that's a guaranteed way to make money off social media.
Twitter really doesn't like your weather takes, huh?
Yeah.
That was so funny. That was so funny. So if anybody is missing it, there was somebody posting pictures on Twitter that was getting trolled a little bit by Neil. That was a good one.
Yeah. Seasonal weather updates.
Seasonal came for privacy tips, stayed for weather updates. That's why I'm on.
That
Twitter.
one was J Pow Pow.
Is
his name. Yeah, that guy. That was pretty good.
Neil had it. Yeah.
Then Neil quoted Miley Cyrus.
Yeah. Always a great person to be quoting.
But yeah, we definitely do want a debt default. The public policy discussion I've been trying to get going on this is how long does a default or a government shutdown specifically have to last before I get to go hunting in a national park? So that's what I've been kind of soliciting answers on that. My guess is somewhere in the ballpark of 6 months, but I don't have a real solid read on that.
Yeah.
Because I want to shoot a buffalo in Yellowstone.
Yeah, that'd be pretty dope. Bears, Yellowstone too. Tons of game. But yeah, on a more serious note, not that it's not serious. I mean,
it's not.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of a debt fault would be great in the sense like it really would force the state to roll back. That's what we would get because they wouldn't be able to do this ridiculous spending in the same way. Unfortunately, I don't think it would get us like fully to where we want to, where everybody just dumps U.S. Treasury bonds and then the state is just, you know, completely powerless because we live in this Ponzi world where everybody's so interconnected to each other in a negative way, in a codependent way, and you know, there would be a restructuring of the debt and everybody would still go and buy U.S. Treasury bonds, all the big money around the world. But, you know, for Tucson specifically, we would see a massive collapse. And, I've been talking about this for a while. We had 6 of the 10 top employers in Tucson are government agencies that would be losing a lot of funding. And the entire city is essentially propped up on debt. So, for anybody outside of Tucson listening, a lot of your tax dollars are coming into the city to, fund our stupid economy. For whatever reason, it's just a giant GDP suck is what I've heard it described as. And so that would be pretty interesting. But what would arise from that? So, we're looking at a financial collapse inevitably at some point. We're looking at the state having some major funding issues. What comes after that is people are take initiative. People are very resilient, and they'll start building out this free market because the government won't be able to manage and regulate everything. And we're going to see actual real industry come in as a result of that in all of these places that have just been completely hampered by the bureaucrat that wants to tell you that you need to have this many fire extinguishers or whatever bullshit that that they're doing. So that would be exciting. I think it'd be a good thing.
Well, there'd be a tremendous amount of pain and turmoil, but and I don't know. On top of that, it's like there's a lot of people that are under the just absolutely total, just completely misguided delusion that can somehow be avoided. That that all these shenanigans, like all these crazy games, money out of thin air, giveaways to bet, that all of that somehow is going to prevent the pain and turmoil, as opposed to making it like the longer this lasts, the worse it is, and just a little bit further out into the future that it goes. And so I don't know. I don't know. I definitely, anybody listening in Arizona, do not buy real estate until the collapse, because it's going to get real cheap once, I think you said 6 of the 10 employers. Like it's going to be real ugly around here, I think. And there's going to be a lot of, I would imagine a lot of stuff on a pretty nice little sale. Like once Raytheon finally goes under, I plan to go to the garage sale that they host to auction off, whatever's left for pennies, I don't know. Yeah. Pennies on the dollar.
Yeah. And Raytheon probably has some cool stuff that you would want to buy.
Yeah.
So speaking of Raytheon, all the idiot engineers over there really upset right now because of the vax mandates that they just got pushed on them last Tuesday, or maybe it was the Tuesday before.
Yeah.
But they had the local Libertarian Party meeting that I was at, and they had a bunch of people there from Raytheon that were very up in arms and upset. And I didn't really feel that bad for them.
Yeah, they probably built the bombs that killed those babies a couple of weeks ago in Afghanistan. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't really care. I don't really give a fuck what they think about vax mandates.
Yeah. It's kind of the same thing for me. Like I lumped like the Raytheon people in with cops.
Yeah.
I mean, cops are probably a little bit worse, but yeah.
It is different. Like actually having your boot on someone's neck versus writing the software that guides these bombs into nurseries and stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing that like bothers me is a lot of these people that I talk to that work with Raytheon fully know what they're doing. It's not like they have this idea of patriotism and they're just blindly following and the line. I think it's the same thing with cops, honestly. Like I think a lot of people get into policing because they just want power over somebody else. They want this badge and this status rather than, serve and portray. There are cops out there that are like that, but I think, that's just ultimately what happens with policing and things like that. And it's just, I don't know. I don't have a lot of sympathy for people that are just totally fine with living completely unethically and doing things that are awful.
Well, and it's like we were talking about a few weeks ago with, the guys that called in and were in favor of calling politicians and, talking to your politician, working with them, having lunch with Ted Cruz, whatever, is like the point I was trying to make to them, because I don't remember who it was, but somebody said something to the effect of, it's like they're good people at the end of the day. Their parents, they're husbands, they're whatever. And my point was basically, if you're directly, complicit in killing children, I don't really care if you're a good dad or a good husband or a good, cousin, boss, whatever. Like, I don't know, like have this old school idea that there's good and evil in the world, and people are it's like being complicit in evil makes you evil, period. There isn't something that goes on the other side of the scale that makes it okay in my book.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not even religious, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I'm kind of with you there. I think a lot of things are black and white. I think you can get into gray areas for sure. But I mean, this is something that's so special about Bitcoin. It's like a lot of these people that are in these positions are just like living in slavery, essentially, like where they're just like mindless automatons, and they're like, I have to do this to support my family. And when you have Bitcoin, you build economic power in your life, and then you have censorship resistant, confiscation resistant money. You have a lot of power, and you can walk away from that job a lot more easy. And it's interesting to watch. What's happening right now is a lot of people are walking from their job because of the vax mandates, and there's this like weird thing in human psychology where we can just like compartmentalize things morally. It's like you see this a lot, like with food and food production, like where the massive farms where they just fatten up these animals and then slaughter them in mass it's just not very ethical, and people are just completely ignorant to it. And then things like slave labor in China, we all agree that slavery is wrong, and very few people want to do anything about it or even look into it, and they'll like support this idea of like we need to support people that are descendants of slavery here, and just like turn a blind eye to slavery elsewhere. It's like I think that's kind of black and white, and I think we live in a time where things are just so bad that it's hard to ignore anymore. And it's kind of interesting to watch people go through this thought process to really realize how broken and corrupt this system is.
Yeah,
try and do something about it.
Yeah, and it still blows me away how, I don't know, like, and anybody that's listened to us for a little bit knows I don't have a very high opinion of, what I would call the mob, 90% of the population. But it's like, I'm still surprised by how few people are just aware of what's going on. I mean, like, for a lot of people, 2020 was a big wake up call. That's, I don't know, like, like one of my favorite scenes of any movie ever is the V for Vendetta scene, like right as Evie's coming, she realizes the whole prison's fake. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, but you should be watching it. You should have watched it by now.
Well, we're gonna do a watch party at some point, November 5th.
And she she realizes the whole prison's fake. Everything. She was lied to, but it's like I don't know, just has this like that moment where she goes out in the rain and like has the whole experience and everything, and that. I've just met a lot of people who that was their experience of 2020, and that's extremely optimistic and encouraging. And at the same time, I see so many people who went through 2020 and, trust Joe Biden or, like all of these just completely insane things, or, or wear a mask outside. There's just a billion of these different things. And I just can't even talk to these people anymore. Like I had a friend recently, hadn't talked to him in a very long time. And I told him, he's one of those, I told him about Bitcoin at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 10,000, all along. I was just like, hey, you should buy some, you should buy some, you should buy some. Never did. Then he calls me up, and we had the whole kind of intro to Bitcoin thing. And he was kind of starting to argue with me. And I was like, I don't have time or energy for this. I was like, I'm telling you the way the world is today. I'm telling you how it's working, and I'm telling you how you unfuck your life. I'm not like, this is a one-way conversation. We're not like, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. I've got so many other things that I would rather do. Like, I want to help you. I want you to understand what's going on. And then he was like, yeah, I don't know. And he finally got it. And then now he's reading the books I told him to read and that kind of stuff. But that's just kind of the approach I've taken is, You know, it's like I want to help as many people as possible. I want to get as many people on board as possible. I want, you know, as many people to experience this freedom as possible. But I'm not going to argue with you. You know, if you've got this whole, you know, chip on your shoulder, you know better, fine, okay, you know better, go for it. I don't care. And that, I don't know, that's been, I don't know if that's the right approach, but it seems like the most practical approach. But.
Yeah, that's solid. I think it's really difficult right now to like live a truly morally pure lifestyle, because I think everything we touch is somehow connected to somebody else's like enslavement and suffering, and I think it's worse than it has been, you know, in some parts of human history. Like if you look at the stats, slavery is much more prevalent than it is today, or today than it was at any point in history, and that shocks people, you know, looking at numbers like that. But I think like a good, you know, attitude to take and participate in is like, I want to commit less harm, and I want to feed and support causes that are, you know, really beneficial. And this is the thing that's so amazing about Bitcoin. And you see a lot of things that are tied into the Bitcoin community that are surrounding this around, you know, actual sustainable practices, like regenerative agriculture. That's like a really cool topic that, you know, there's a bunch of people in the Bitcoin space that are interested in that. You know, I've got buddies at the Bitcoin meetup that really go and try and source their food from local farmers and get good quality stuff rather than getting, you know, whatever store-bought garbage there is. And I think all of those things are positive, and like using Bitcoin and using it in a way where you're self-custodying it and, you know, trying to, you know, support businesses that are accepting it and are not compliant with the bullshit, I think is incredibly powerful. And it's part of that, like, do less harm. It's moving us, you know, away from this nonsense. And, you know, not everybody has the ability to just like shut down all their bank accounts and, you know, completely exit the system. Right now it's difficult to do that. You know, it's possible, but it's incredibly difficult to do that. But, you know, we're moving in that direction, and I think that's positive to do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly why I was at the farmer's market on Sunday. You know, it's like I want to buy food from the people who made it and give them cash so that, you know, they have the opportunity, or they have a choice on how much information they disclose to certain parties about that transaction, you know?
Yeah. Well, anyways, that was a good solid couple minutes of ranting.
I do think though it's like a big value of, you know, we always call Bitcoin "fuck you" money, and it's I think such a huge part of it is, you know, it lets us, you know, like I don't know if you use the term morally pure or something like that. Like it lets us enact our principles, because it's like when we have economic power, we can make long-term decisions that align with our principles long-term. And that's, you know, I don't want to get into Breedlove, but it's like that's what was so frustrating, or maybe not frustrating, but just confusing to me, you know, way back in May when he first did that podcast with Valis, and then it was Eric Kaysen who was, you know, explaining to him the morals of why we don't shitcoin. And that was just so confusing to me, because for me, the whole point of fuck you money, the whole point of economic power is to live a principled life and to not compromise principles. And so it's like, it literally does not fit in my brain how a person, you know, spends that much time with fuck you money, you know, the ultimate tool for human freedom that's ever been developed in all of humanity, and then also like has all these compromised principles, and, you know, then goes on to do a BitClout thing. And it's not even, you know, it's not even like, oh, he's stupid, he's a shitcoiner, nobody listened to him or anything like that. It's just, for me, it's more confusing and disappointing than anything. Yeah. And I was never a giant fan, and I, you know, pretty much wrote him off when he did that podcast, because I was like, are you serious? You need Eric Kaysen to explain this to you? I mean, Eric Kaysen did a fantastic job, because, you know, he's just a boss, just like Lurk said in the chat. But that was, I don't know, that was very, very, very strange to me. It was just an odd thing, because it's like, if we're not trying to, you know, live a principled life and not have to compromise, then I don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah. Well, I think this brings up an interesting, you know, point. I was on the phone with my brother, and, you know, he's a pretty uber religious guy. He studied at a private Christian college to become a pastor, and has been pretty active in that. And he's been a part of a church that just had a sex scandal, and that's been just the story over and over again. Is you get these abuses of power in these places that are ultimately supposed to be good. Like when you look at a church, what is the purpose of a church? Well, it's to grow, to be a better person and love your community better, ultimately, and serve others. Like that's the purpose of getting together and going to a church. And you get these hierarchies where there's lack of accountability and people are morally corrupted. And I think part of the reason why is we're not supposed to have that type of authority over people. And you see the reaction to Breed Love in that case where he just gets totally called out. And that's beautiful. And you contrast that like with the political scene and with these churches, and these people never get called out. They just continue to do what they're doing until essentially they die. And you look at the Catholic Church, which has historically been one of the most corrupt institutions. And it's because of that, for that exact reason. Like it's built to have this, moral authority to dictate things to other people. And I just don't think that that's, beneficial in any way, and the Bitcoin community is so different in that regard, because it's not about creating these hierarchies where this person is the high priest, that we must bow to and get as much traffic to their work. And, if anybody says anything bad about them, there's this entire structure to like tear people down. So I think that's incredibly powerful, and that's telling of where we're going as a society because of Bitcoin. There's going to be hierarchies, but it's going to be based on merit. And if somebody does something stupid like shill a shit coin, their reputation is going to be tarnished, and they're not going to be trusted in the same way. It's going to be incredibly difficult to get back to that place of, where they're respected by other people. And that is so different than the fiat hierarchy that we have today.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's watching these structures of authority and control just get nuked is going to be, it's already fun to watch. I mean, we've been watching the cathedral burn for years, and it's just going to get worse for them. And it's their, like all the stuff people are freaking out about, vaccine passports, whatever, is just, in my opinion, the absolute last ditch efforts of a dying empire to cement control over a pile of ashes. And it's like we have the tool, like we have what we need, and it's super exciting. We can, I'm, on balance, I'm still bullish on America. I think it's going to be a good spot. I anticipate being in Arizona for a very long time. But that's not anything, it's not like my identity's wrapped up in that. If they go Soviet, then we'll exit, we'll go somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. My attitude right now, I have a Arizona flag on my wall. I don't have an American flag, but yeah, I'm also bullish on America for that reason. But yeah, so we got some people in the spaces. Maybe we go there, see what they have to think. No, we had a few people requested that left. I'm going to invite them to speak. Senor Maximilian, you got anything for us? Okay. XRY, I don't even know how to say it. I'll just call you Lion. BTC Mango, you got anything for us? Oh, I have to unmute everybody.
Yo, what's going on, everybody?
Not much. How you doing?
Oh, what's up, Ski? Long time no talk.
I know. How's the 3D printing world going?
It's fantastic. I got a bunch of new orders. I got some requests for some parts, filaments getting delivered. Got a massive order with Crypto Cloak coming in hopefully the next couple days. Should be at TabConf as well, 2021, November 3rd through the 6th, I believe. Everybody come and check out the Eden 3D booth.
Yep.
Down there.
If you're at TabConf, go check out Max's booth, Eden 3D Printing. He's got a pretty cool machine.
Yeah,
I'll set up, show you how it works.
and give a massive shout out to Skeef for being the first customer of Lightning Water. I know I haven't done much with that, but I told the OpenSats team we'll make a donation to them in the coming weeks.
What's Lightning Water?
So it's basically water that will charge you up. It's powered by Bitcoin miners. Bitcoin developers get some funding for every bottle that is sold, and the donations are going to OpenSat. So we gave away a bunch of water and sold some water at Bitcoin 2021 in Miami. Unfortunately, the shipment came like 1 day late, so I couldn't sell as much as I wanted. But Skeef was the first one to come through and make a donation. So thank you, Skeef, for that. And
Tucson, hit the button.
Yeah, there you go.
Let's go. That sounds lit, dude. That's what's up.
That's good time.
Yeah, I
check this out.
Guaranteed
I
no
haven't put up
fluoride,
a website. What was that?
I said guaranteed no fluoride. I just made that up, but it's probably true.
Exactly. Probably, but it's honestly, I picked the bottle company because it's like quadruple or quintuple filtered shit. It's UV thing. It's cured, and now I just got pallets sitting right next to the Bitcoin miners.
Nice. Good deal.
Soaking up all that osmosis stuff.
Nice.
Good, a lovely chat. I'm definitely tuning in every week now.
Dope.
So we had a fantastic time in Miami. Got to hang out with Max, his buddy from home. That was a good time. Yeah. Super fun.
Yeah, it was an awesome time. We got to stay at the house. It was pretty close to the conference. It wasn't too far away. Everybody had a good time. Everybody got lit. It was a good event.
Yeah.
That's dope. Yeah, the Bitcoin conferences I think are so important. We started to have some discussions about hosting a Arizona conference, which we're hoping to have October of 2022. And I think that's going to be a necessity to put on local state conferences because our flying might be limited and our travel might be limited too.
Yeah, that's going to be, man, we're headed right into the most beautiful time of the year in Arizona right now. So October 2022 is going to be the perfect
Yeah, the
time.
weather report's coming in real nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got my sweatpants on. It's still kind of hot in this room, but
So you guys got to come to Toxic Airwaves for the privacy tips, stay for the seasonal weather reports.
Yep.
Yes.
And anyone in the chat will pick up on what that was about.
I think this is the first time we've had a weather report.
Hey, so I kind of jumped in late. I had to handle a call, but I just want to say I rock with what you guys are doing with the Toxic Airwaves, and kind of piggybacking off the last part that I just heard about, you kind of talking about the state and like classes. So I'm trying to show my aunt on something, and she just thinks when I tell her, we're going to a hyper Bitcoinized world, she just questions like, how are all the roads going to go? How are, you're just creating a new thing. You're just creating a new like power paradigm. And, kind of what you were talking about at the end there, how it's, it's going to be based off merit. And what would you say to her if she says, well, how is this any better if you're just creating a new system, a new class of rulers?
I would say, so I think in my opinion, the fundamental problem with the current system is that it's built on, like, the entire foundation of it is violent theft. And that's what a lot of people haven't internalized. Like, a lot of people think, like, taxes is how we work together as opposed to being a violent form of theft. And that's, I don't know, I try to, and there's a lot of people that have just never, ever been exposed to any of these ideas. It does not make them bad people, doesn't make them, absolutely nothing negative. There's a lot of people that just haven't had exposure. And so that's a role that we can play as people in their lives, is just kind of providing that exposure. But I think, like, for me, the core of it is that, and there's a really good book that we've showed on here before. It's called The Most Dangerous Superstition by Larkin Rose. And what that book does, it's pretty short, 130 pages, maybe something like that. And what he does is he goes through the whole and it's not Bitcoin at all. This book was published way before Bitcoin. But he goes through the whole idea of political authority, like why it's inherently illegitimate, and in my opinion does a very good job kind of outlining the basic philosophy for why these systems of control are fundamentally immoral. And I think like something productive that comes out of that is establishing why these things are inherently illegitimate, why they're inherently evil. And it's like, okay, we don't want that. So what do we want? We want individuals to be empowered to create whatever life they want to create. Any kind of crazy thing somebody wants to get into, if they can do that and abide by the non-aggression principle, not coercing anyone, not hurting anybody, then that's a much more peaceful, free society and a much more peaceful, free place to live. I think another good thing to point out with people is that the vast, vast majority of our human interactions are already anarchist. It's like if you go to your friend's house, you don't have, you have a potluck at your friend's house. You don't have a government planning board telling everybody what to bring. You don't have regulations on what needs to be in the cast, all these crazy things. You don't have any of that. No, people just show up, they have a potluck, they have a good time, they go home. There's no need for any coercion. There's no need for any control. And it's, that's just a tiny kind of silly little example. But I think what it shows is that the vast, vast majority of our human interactions are already, totally aligned with anarchist principles and have no need for the state. And all we're talking about is expanding that a little bit.
Yeah.
And do you think that can, be drawn out to like larger scale things? I'm sure she would, I think that's like spot on, and that's obviously something I'm going to say to her. But I feel like she would say, like, again, she brings up the roads. Just like I know this one's going to be a tough one to get, but I think it's important. But yeah, can that us planning together without the government being involved? Do you think that can be expanded out into larger endeavors?
Yeah, I think I would say a couple of things. Number one, we have no idea because it hasn't been tested, so that's definitely part of it. Number two, I think a lot of it, and this is where I think Bitcoin comes in big time, is like kind of understanding how the state acquires resources. It acquires, theft through taxes and theft through inflation. Bitcoin, makes theft through inflation completely impossible, and it makes theft through taxes extremely difficult. And so I think probably like if I was having that kind of a conversation, I would take it somewhere along the lines of just kind of like understanding the progression of Bitcoin, understanding, the implications of people having total sovereignty over their wealth, and then saying, so this entity that currently does all this stuff that some people think is valuable, some people don't, we could even be agnostic on that. Like this entity, its ability to accumulate power and resources is rapidly trending towards zero. And we're about to find out what the world looks like without that. And there's going to be pros and cons for sure. Roads specifically, there's a decent, pretty heavy book. It's called The Anatomy of the State. That's a Rothbard book. That's
okay.
Super short.
No, that's a short one. What's the Liberty one? That's like 400 pages long. I'll have to look up the title, but Ethics of Liberty. And so that's a book that goes through a lot of the kind of nitty-gritty details of what different things look like. If there are no cops, what does private security look like? And yeah.
I think, when somebody asks me about the roads, I like to walk them outside or have them look at like a Google Earth map and point out all the buildings that were created based on, private equity, and, point out the driveways were built without the government. And, if people want to get places, they can fund and build the roads. And, it's interesting, like kind of going back to what Kelly Lannon was talking about, is this idea of like, city development being based on what's profitable, and how that's so different than what we have today, where you just have a bunch of waste that's created in these suburban nightmares. that happen. You know, if a business owner has a business, they're going to fund the road, and then you imagine like how better they'll be able to pay for these things if you don't have the state coming in and skimming all of this money and burning 2/3 of it doing, you know, nothing. And then, yeah, I mean, you look at the way that markets work, and this is a really good, you know, explanation for people too, is you have billions, trillions of decentralized interactions happening all the time. And there's no way for the central planner to really be able to organize or understand those. And you just have to, the market is most efficient when you just allow it to happen, and for all these people to make these decisions on their own accord, rather than to have some bureaucrat sitting in an office and they're like, oh, well, inflation's running hot, so that means that we need to hike this up, or, you know, place a tariff on this, or, you know, whatever, subsidize, you know, soy. And, you know, these things are, you know, inherently self-correcting, but yeah, I don't think we're gonna have like large countries in the same way, and I think it's gonna be smaller collectives operating and interacting with each other. The transition to that, I think, is gonna be rough, because you got like these idiots in Portland that think that they can create this stupid communist system, and things like that are gonna fail, and so we're gonna have a period of experimentation with different concepts and ideas that's going to be a lot more natural. People are going to do a lot of different things versus what's happening today, where you have all these countries that are, you know, operating kind of in tandem because of the way that the monetary system works, you know, with the way that, you know, the US has been able to go and meddle in everybody's business, as well as other, you know, central organizations. So I think it's going to be a lot more natural. You'll have the Portlands that are, you know, nightmares, and then you'll have other areas that I think are a little bit more natural and free. And I think the nightmares are going to be short-lived, because one, you know, people are going to leave there. They're not going to want to get shot up against the wall because they, you know, didn't approve of something, you know, being taught in school or whatever. And then, you know, two, they're just not going to be economically feasible, because they're not going to be propped up by a printing press and inflation. So it's going to be an interesting transition. The Sovereign Individual lays this out a lot, but you know, these things, they're gonna happen because this is human nature. It's natural. Capitalism is ultimately the most natural way for markets to exist. You know, the central planning is super unnatural, and I think anarchism is the natural order of things, of people organizing locally rather than looking to you know, a leader. And whenever you see these unnatural things, you get these bad side effects in our society, like abuses of power. And, you know, ultimately what's going to lead us to a different form of governance is the technology that we have today. It's the internet and it's Bitcoin. So I see it as an inevitability. And, you know, a lot of people won't see it that way, but, you know, when the state fails and there's no police protection, and roving groups of people are, you know, running around trying to steal your stuff because everything's in disarray, private policing is going to make a lot of sense. Yeah. And when you don't have money to build the roads, like, people are going to start doing it themselves. Like, this is kind of an inevitability, unless, you know, for some reason Bitcoin fails and they get their central bank digital currencies, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, yeah.
And if there's tons and tons of people who want to go from one spot to another, you know, whoever enables that has a pretty nice business opportunity, you know, a good way to make a lot of money. Yeah. It's just like one small example.
Yeah.
The thing that makes me laugh about people making the, you know, who's going to build the road comment is they don't understand right now that private contractors are the ones who are physically laying the stone and the pavement and bringing in the rollers. The state or the city just provides the check. Now, again, that's where we're going into that discussion of how do we, you know, cut off, you know, that head of the snake of, you know, where the state is funding their money. But at the very end of the day, only like, I mean, just here in the Midwest, I can't, you know, say anywhere else. I'm very close to Detroit. So let's make it up, maybe 5% of all actual road work or just infrastructure work itself is done by state workers, but 95% is done by outside private contractors, people, ergo professionals. Okay, not the lazy guy, on the side of the road, one guy digging a hole and 7 guys standing around holding up one shovel and saying, "Yeah, he's doing a pretty good job." Like that's a state worker job. But most roads, if not all, are built by private contractors. They're funded by the state, of course, and then that's the crux of the issue.
And the price tag is orders of magnitude higher. Like I'm trying to remember which bridge it was. I think it might have been the Golden Gate Bridge. It was either that or the Bay Bridge, one of those. But anyway, there's a bridge in California that was originally built in like the early 1900s, and the price tag was X. And they were adding an on-ramp to this bridge. This on-ramp took 5, 6, 7 years to complete, and adjusted for inflation, not just like the price tag, but adjusted for inflation, that little on-ramp cost way more than the entire bridge did 100 years ago, when the technology was absolute dog shit compared to what it is today, when, it was just a completely different world. Like they're building shit with like hydraulic pumps and shovels and hammers and stuff, and they built this entire bridge for significantly less, again, adjusted for inflation, than what this one on-ramp that they added on 100 years later costs. And that, you expand that out across the whole scope of government procurement. And that's one of the, For a New Liberty was the book I was trying to think of earlier. And that's one of the points he makes there is, it's like when you do these things properly, which means no involvement from the state, you can get something a lot better for a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the cost. And so the common thing is, somebody will say, oh, we spend, I don't know how much you spend on interstates, $10 billion on interstates. Who's going to come up with the $10 billion? And I think, the response is, we can get something a lot better for a tiny, tiny fraction of that cost. And then whatever that 9 point whatever billion that's left over is just back in people's pockets and is never stolen from them in the first place.
Yep. And it's better for everybody in that case. But yeah, I think that's a good.
Yeah, it's totally different when you're not A, printing your money in the basement, and then B, issuing the check and you write your own number, whatever you want, right? There's so much waste that goes into that.
And I think on top of that too, it's like kind of going back to this idea of the specialization of labor. Politicians and bureaucrats are not going to be knowing how best to build the roads. Like contractors are not the people holding office. And so they're going to poorly manage these things. And then on top of that, like ultimately, like what ends up happening is they build stuff that people actually want and are going to be paying for and that people need versus just, going out and building whatever, and this happened recently in Tucson where they decided like the pensions are super unfunded and they decided to, throw like hundreds of millions of dollars at a library, and they just misallocated funds. Not that I'm like against libraries or anything, but you just ultimately look at it. It's like the market is going to provide 1 billion times better than, whichever politician it is. Like Ted Cruz is not going to manage our money well. Well, on the topic of politicians, did you see that tweet by Blake Masters?
Yeah, he wants the U.S. to establish a Bitcoin reserve, I saw.
Yeah.
Fort Nakamoto sounds kind of dope, though.
Yeah.
So I was talking about this with the guys in Spaces before we went live. But yeah, that idea raises a major red flag for me.
I'm not a fan. Because people are like, oh, this would be good for the government. And it's like, yeah, no, it definitely would. It would extend their life a lot, which is a terrible thing in my book.
Well, there would be that aspect of it, but he's contrasting Fort Nakamoto to Fort Knox, and all the gold got there because of confiscation, you know, because Executive Order 6102 and then swindling a bunch of other countries too.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a bad comparison, but that's ultimately what the state's going to do. You know?
Yeah, I mean that's how they'll get most of their Bitcoin.
Yeah, they're just going to steal it from the good old folks, just trying to do their thing.
Everyone with coin on Coinbase is gonna have an IOU, and the physical Bitcoin's gonna go to Fort Nakamoto.
Yeah, we want our politicians to stay stupid.
Yeah. Well, that might be a foregone conclusion, but we want them to be neutered, powerless, and terrified.
Yeah, if you want to do something beneficial for the world, go and call your politicians and shill them XRP. Get them to stack a bunch of XRP or Ethereum, and that would be amazing.
And I will say the one form of political action, in person, whatever, you know, talking to politicians, the one form that I do definitely support is just absolutely blatant disrespect to their face.
Yep.
There was a guy recently who was taking a picture with Trudeau. He's like, "Oh, Trudeau, can I get a picture?" And he goes to snap the picture, and he goes, "Get fucked, commie," is what he says to him. And like to Trudeau's face, and Trudeau's just, you know, just walks away because what can he do? And it's like, and it's not like, you know, that guy accomplished absolutely nothing, but, you know, tons and tons of people doing that over and over again, you know, at scale, you know, we're to where these people can't even show their face without hearing "get fucked, commie." And Lurk said we should neuter politicians. And yeah, I did mean that literally, that they should be physically castrated.
Yeah.
Among other things.
I was like, I've had a few moments of just feeling super encouraged over the last couple of weeks. One of them was watching those cops in Australia just get rocked. The other one was Hillary Clinton was somewhere in Boston, and you know, these good old Boston people were screaming at her, you know, calling her pure evil, asking her how many people she's killed, how she feels about the blood on her hands. And I think that stuff is absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's just beautiful. Like I mean, ultimately, like, why are we propping up and giving these people any sort of legitimacy, the people that are stealing from us and treating us like shit? You know, and we were joking last week about calling our politicians, and you know, how that prevented us from having a $300 reporting requirement to the IRS on every you know, bank transaction, and how it's up to 600. You know, it's like these are the people that we're looking to. Like this Blake Masters guy, I looked into him a little bit, not too much, but into his campaign, you know, and he's promoting the wall, you know, and kind of these Trumpist policies, you know, and I just can't help but think every time I look at that wall, like that wall might be trying to keep us in rather than out, or other people out. And, you know, we just have to like look at it like, regardless of who it is, I mean, short of Ron Paul was pretty cool, but he didn't accomplish a lot. But other than like promoting a message of freedom and liberty, which is incredibly powerful. Yeah. So I probably shouldn't put him down too much, but yeah, putting a lot of faith in these politicians to like go in and change the system, I think is just, you know, stupid. And, you know, even if they're Bitcoiners, I think it's a wasted effort.
Yeah. Yeah. Ron Paul's success was all individual to individual, which is, yeah, that. I don't know. I saw somebody ask the question, was he the last honest politician? And it's like, I mean, he might have been the first too.
Yeah, he's an anomaly. Yeah. Well, speaking of Ron Paul, so I talked a little bit about the libertarian meeting that I went to. There's this cool organization called the Mises Caucus, which I'm sure some people have heard of. Those people are my people, you know, short of being full Bitcoiners. And we had a get together on Sunday, and it was pretty cool, you know, hanging out with a bunch of people that, you know, have read Rothbard and really get the message. But it's, you know, it was interesting, like going around talking with everybody's just so disenchanted with politics and kind of black-pilled on it because they, you know, a lot of these people had volunteered on the Ron Paul campaign for president and just watch him totally get screwed by the RNC. And I think, you know, if anybody has the stomach for it, that's like a good crew to go and try and orange pill. But Yeah, I definitely have a lot of respect for those guys in the Mises caucus. Skeef came to one of the events with me where Lynn Ulbricht was invited to speak. And it's cool to see, an organization that actually, focuses on principles. And this is not representative of the larger Libertarian Party in the slightest. There's so much nonsense there. And, if you go there, you're probably going to be pretty discouraged. But, those Mises caucus guys are pretty cool. And, my sole goal, when I go there is like, I'm looking for people that are part of this remnant. And I think those types of groups definitely have a higher ratio than, other places.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that hanging out with Lynn Albrecht was badass.
Yeah, and that movie that they showed, it was they showed a film that was like basically this guy made a film out of the life of the guy, and I think it was all.
It's called Tank Man.
Yeah, it's called Tank Man. I think it was all fiction. Like I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they have, yes, yeah, of course, yeah, CCP would have squashed any information about that guy. But it was basically a fictionalized story of what that day might have looked like for him. Like leading up to the guy that walked out in front of the tank, the Tiananmen Square massacre.
Yeah, so 12 in the comments says Dave Smith is generating a lot of attention for the Mises caucus.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you go and so Guy Swan was on Dave Smith's podcast.
Very good.
Pretty recently. And, anything that Guy does is fantastic. But you saw that Dave's, the wheels in his head were spinning. And, like, he got a lot of shit on Twitter from Bitcoin Twitter, which I think was, warranted. But that was pretty cool, to see that overlap. And that's the type of stuff that I'm talking about is, like, the Mises caucus crew are the people that, are going to be a little bit more likely to understand this message. It's full of anarchists. It's full of people that are really disenchanted with the system, that have done research on this stuff. They listen to Tom Woods, who has Saifedean on pretty regularly, and other Bitcoiners. So they're predisposed to this stuff. And like, my standpoint around this stuff is like, I truly believe that society is going to get more violent. It's going to get more tumultuous. And I want people in my corner. And so I'm out there recruiting, not just, trying to orange pill people, but also to have people that have my back when that happens.
And I think also, like something we've talked about, here and especially in our Telegram chat is just this idea. Like I'm of the opinion that like, any kind of physical violence is playing their game on their terms. It's like I don't come at this from a, Martin Luther King's amazing I love Gandhi perspective. Like I come at it from an extremely practical and pragmatic perspective that I think it's terrible strategy. And I think that unfortunately, a lot of these people are going to figure that out the hard way. That physical violence, and I'm talking about at scale. I'm not talking about person to person. If somebody mugs you, kill them. That's just how it works. But I mean, that's what concealed carry is for. But I'm talking about like at scale, like these people that we're going to rise up, we're going to have a hot civil war. There's a lot of people with these ideas, and I think it's very misguided from a practical strategy perspective, and that I think those kinds of things are playing their game on their terms, and that's how you lose 100% of the time. And like one of the main things we've hopefully have learned from the cypherpunks is this idea of like asymmetric advantage and using leverage and using technology. It's like cypherpunks build tools, cypherpunks use tools. It's like they didn't lobby the government to make encryption legal. They showed how powerful it was, and they showed that it's open source and that anyone can use it. And if you try to shut it down, we're going to laugh at you, and it's going to be hilarious. And it's like that's, I think, the approach that we can take with Bitcoin is they say, oh my good, at some point there's going to be a wide realization of what we've been talking about and what we all know, which is that Bitcoin absolutely just completely obliterates their ability to accumulate power and resources. And, they're going to have that realization, and a lot of people are going to say, okay, well, we've got to shut that down before it happens. And it's like, well, like your last chance was like 2014, maybe 2013. Probably even earlier than that. Like this ship has sailed. It's done. It's happening.
1913.
You know, you're out. Well, I mean, like with Bitcoin.
Oh, okay.
Like the last shot when they would have had a prayer of shutting it down. I mean, that's like 2014 is like the absolute latest date I could possibly come up with. It was probably a lot earlier than that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, they're going to have this realization, and they're like, okay, well, we've got to clamp down. We have to do everything in our power, because if we let this thing go, or if this thing continues to take off, we're done. We have no power and we have no resources, and everything we've built over the last couple of 100 years evaporates into smoke. And, you know, our answer as Bitcoiners is going to be, yeah, that's what we've been talking about. It's done. It's over. Like, quit. You know, you're not qualified to do anything worthwhile, so you're going to have a really hard time. You know, maybe, I don't know, maybe you can find some yards to mow or something like that. I don't know what to tell you. But this whole idea of being employed by coercing other, you know, to coerce other people, that job doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. All those Raytheon assholes will be out of jobs.
Yeah.
So 12 in the chat again. Once you give up on rationality, all you're left with is blood and the will to power. And that's precisely what we're fighting against.
Yeah.
And that's a big reason why I think this idea of like going and creating these communities of people right now is so incredibly important. Like, have these networks already sorted out. And I think Bitcoin meetups are a great tool for that. You know, some people live in areas where they can go and they talk to their neighbors and to like start preparing for that, and, you know, relying on your neighbors, which I think is good. Homeschool collectives are cool. I mean, there's so many ways to do this, but yeah, I mean, going out there and trying to convince people that have no connection to reality whatsoever, I think is a complete waste of time. And, you know, you can stand there and you can hold people's hands and, you know, be nice to them, but you also have to be, you know, preparing for what's coming. Yeah. You know, we're already all classified as terrorists by DHS. You know, they're coming. And yeah.
Yeah. And there's Svetsky had another good article in Bitcoin Magazine recently. I don't know the exact topic, something about toxicity, but
hashtag log scale.
Yeah. Oh, fuck that guy. Like, one thing I think he did a particular, I mean, I like, you know, everything that he writes, but like that one thing I think he did particularly well was dismantling this idea that mass adoption is some sort of positive thing we should hope for, or that it's even an option on the table. And it's something we've talked about here before. I mean, that was a few weeks ago when we had that discussion with about whether people should call their politicians or whatever. That was one thing, you know, they said, how are we going to achieve mass adoption if we don't work with politicians? And that caught me off guard, because I was like, I don't give a fuck about mass adoption.
Yeah.
I don't care. I care about, you know, unleashing human flourishing and, you know, this tool being used and us having sovereignty over our wealth. Like,
gotta have the adoption for it to be used, though.
I don't think so. I think a tiny percent of the population will ever hold their own keys. Like, I think most people will benefit from Bitcoin by society changing under their feet, and will never actually adopt it in any kind of meaningful way.
Really?
Yeah. And I think it's and it kind of ties into this, and that article that I was referencing too, kind of goes through the idea. But no, I mean, yeah, I would be like, if we could get 3 to 5% of the population like actually using Bitcoin, holding keys, that would be just the most astronomical success beyond, I think, anyone's wildest dreams. What that would produce.
I think it's super doable, because you have like so much of the world's population, like probably not in America, but like in other countries, is under like a strong enough dictatorship or like strong enough oppression that they're like much more greater incentivized to like understand that part of Bitcoin, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not just gonna have all their coins on an exchange because their government. That's no different than banking, like, for real. They're gonna be incentivized to hold it themselves because their government is like so shitty, they'll just take their money.
And I think,
in my opinion,
yeah.
What's interesting about that is, like, you have places like Venezuela, because you have a large subset of the population that promotes and supports and props up that system. And that's the only way that these societies function. And so I think even in, these countries that are experiencing large amounts of inflation and have totalitarian governments, like the remnant is going to be the first people that adopt it. And I think the remnant, like, I think there is going to be a large portion of the population that is using Bitcoin in the future. But the remnant's going to lead them there. It's going to be the people that have the foresight and the knowledge and the willingness that go and understand what the problem is and begin utilizing the most powerful tool that for freedom that we have. And, that's going to shift, the mass ultimately. But I think the system that we have today where we allow the masses to control, everything is just, super bad. I mean, it's like,
that's terrible.
If we get like mass adoption today, like, if you get your favorite politician or somebody that has like a large voice, like if AOC goes out there and starts shilling Bitcoin to everybody, and you get all these morons utilizing Bitcoin and they just like buy it on Robinhood and on Coinbase, that does nothing for shaping the future and for human history, like moving us in a direction of freedom. That just continues the same perpetual thing forward versus like this idea of like Svetsky was talking about a selective adoption. Like part of the reason why I go to the Mises caucus and show up to these people versus, going to, other groups that like I'm not interested in like teaching people about Bitcoin, like for them to go and buy GBTC so that they're not wrecked as their 401ks cease to exist. I'm interested in people that are not going to be compliant with the bullshit, that are going to be empowered by Bitcoin and be using it to really promote human freedom so that it makes these politicians and other maniacs in our society that are just total freeloaders irrelevant. And I think that's where it's powerful, how we get there.
Yeah. And I think tons of people, like, most of the population will benefit from Bitcoin without ever holding their own keys. And that, I don't know, I bring that up because like whatever a person does with Bitcoin, if they're not holding keys, they're not holding Bitcoin. And that doesn't mean they can't benefit. That doesn't mean, these financial products that are going to get built on Bitcoin can't benefit them. Like people's, there will be tons and tons of people who will spend their entire life never spending 1 second giving a single shit about Bitcoin, whose lives will be dramatically better than they would be otherwise, just because society changed underneath them. And that I think is a big thing. And so like, like it's I don't know. There's a lot of people that will never actually hold Bitcoin. Most people, like if
I agree with that.
If 5% of the population 100 years from now was actually holding keys and using Bitcoin, that'd be extremely optimistic. Like that'd be a very, very high number.
I mean, isn't this again, not to bring up another, fallen person out of Bitcoin, if you will, but this just reminds me of the Nassim Taleb quote of the intolerant minority.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he just relates that to the Jewish culture of how, of course, the Jewish population is not the majority of, human civilization, but all food brands or grocery stores, restaurants, what have you, everybody has to comply with kosher law.
Yep.
Not that everybody follows it, but because there's just that small minority of people that are such a pain in the ass to deal with regarding how they personally choose to consume food, it is going to be, very similar with Bitcoin, that you just have that small core group of 3 to 5% of the entire global population that I hold the keys. I'm not selling. I'll sell it when it's worth 1,000 spaceships or something like that, whatever the stupid number is.
Mm-hmm.
From there, those are going to be the ones that will drive and say, okay, well, again, just like all of your brands, they put the kosher symbol, even though, they don't necessarily follow it. It's easier to go along with that intolerant minority because they just won't change. And it's going to be the same thing for Bitcoin. Not only that, as you start to extrapolate out from the various layers that we already have and yet to come, we already know. I don't know who came up with this. I don't know if it was roast beef or Alex Bosworth or somebody, but we've already figured out that not every human being is going to have their own UTXO, which means in order to have a Lightning channel open with somebody, that requires an on-chain payment. We just said that not every human being is going to have a UTXO. It takes a UTXO to open up a Lightning payment or a Lightning channel. So that means, so somewhere down the line, you will have to use, if you, of course, don't have, a rich Bitcoin parent like Steve, trying to buy a military complex after we go bankrupt on that as a government. Exactly. You will be forced to use somebody else's Lightning node as your bank. And hence, going back to Satoshi's comment, whichever email thread or post he put in Bitcoin Talk, whatever it was, there's going to be Bitcoin banks. Yes, fine, you have exchanges and what have you, but that intolerant minority not only wants Bitcoin to live and operate in a certain way, because that's how they choose to use it, you will also be using their channels and their hardware and their account balances. And so you're going to have that small group essentially directing the entire global flow. So whenever that time comes, whether it's tomorrow or in 50 years from now, the people that are holding your own private keys in the UTXO is that 3 to 5%. You will be running the world. We will be, that cream of the crop, if you will. And other people are going to have to piggyback off of the rails that we've already built. But you need that intolerant minority.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
I think
super
that's a great
interesting.
parallel.
I think the imagery of like the Jewish community being super intolerant. I've worked with some Jewish individuals that are kosher, and it's very they're very, very intense about it. I think that's a great comparison. But yeah, that's super interesting to think about.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
Why couldn't everybody get a UTXO? What's the thought process behind that? Just it's too expensive to
All
open
right,
up.
it's first of all, I have a question for you. How is your grandma doing?
She's doing good.
All right, good. I love your grandma. She's a wonderful lady.
I agree.
The reason why not every human being can't have a UTXO is because everything costs to put on chain, a Satoshi. At some point, we already hit. There are only 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis in the entire Bitcoin, supply. 21 million Bitcoin, 100 million times 21 million puts you at 2.1 quadrillion. For the people that aren't holding the people that aren't holding, all their funds in one wallet. I know that you have several wallets with several different funds. I know I do, and everybody else. The amount of wallets themselves, in order to go and send even the smallest, amount of dust, whatever that dust limit is, to broadcast a transaction is, let's just make it up on the legacy system. I know I'm getting technical here, but it's like 600 Satoshis. With Beck 32, we now have that reduced down to like 140, like 100 sats, and probably in the future, devs will get smart enough and we'll just shrink that number smaller and smaller. The point is, the reason why most people won't have their opportunity to hold their own 12 or 24 words is because not only is there not enough supply that you're not willing to go and sell them, okay, whatever price, but more specifically, when Bitcoin is at $100 million a coin, and it is 1 sat per dollar, and you have, even if that's around, and even if you have the amount of funds to go and broadcast the transaction at, 1 sat per byte, 140 bytes, whatever, so you would be paying $140 in that case. By the time that comes, you haven't even calculated the amount of people that acquired UTXOs leading up to that point. So there is literally only a finite amount based on the
the people that are already holding like us. We're not going to give it up. Second, as the price increases, it will be harder to enter into the base layer of the on-chain, making a Bitcoin payment. So you're just going to essentially price yourself, out of being able to broadcast an on-chain payment. It will literally just be too expensive. And the only way for you to go and get that is to get it from somebody else, naturally. And I don't think you're willing to go and sell your particular transaction to somebody else at that point, if it's $100 million in coin or something like that.
And I think the broader issue is that the mob, like I said, that minimum 80% of the population is either completely incapable or completely unwilling to take sovereignty over their life and to critically evaluate and interact with the world around them. And that I think is the broader issue. Like Bitcoin requires extreme ownership, requires a person actively taking their own sovereignty into their own control. And I personally don't see any evidence in history that more than, those numbers, 3, 5, you get real crazy, 10% of the population has ever been capable and willing to practice that or will ever. And that's something I'd love to be wrong about, but I think anyone on the other side of that argument has to come up with an explanation for how human nature has fundamentally changed since the year 2009. And that seems like a tall order.
I was going to say, do you think, as everything gets worse, right? Because, the government's only going to try to get bigger until they're forced to get smaller, right? So as everything gets worse and, more countries are becoming like Australia and stuff like that, do you think the people will change, or at least a large enough percentage of them for it to matter, where they will want to take their own sovereignty, where they will want to acquire guns, and you know what I'm saying? Because shit's gonna just get rowdier and rowdier and rowdier until eventually it's
we've already been
whatever
through,
that looks like.
Yeah, we've already been through massive periods of war, which are hopefully much worse than anything we'll see. It's think about what happened in World War II, World War I. Go back all these wars in medieval time. We've had these periods of just absolutely incredible turmoil, and it didn't change, as far as I can tell, didn't change human nature.
Didn't change anybody.
Yeah. And it's I the mob, I don't, that to me, that's not even a disparaging term. To me, it's just an observation. It's, there's just a huge portion of the population who, like I said, is either incapable or unwilling to critically evaluate and interact with the world around them. And that, like I said, that kind of what we're talking about at the very beginning, that doesn't make anybody a bad person, doesn't make them eat. It's an observation, just like trees have leaves and fish can swim and, whatever. It's an observation about how, the natural order of the world seems to work, and obviously we want as many of those people as possible. It's if somebody comes up to me and says, I heard about Bitcoin. What is it? If they're not a dick, I have all the time in the world. I want that person to be empowered. I want that person to be free. I want that person to hold their own keys. I want, all these things for them. But, my reading of history suggests that only a tiny percentage will ever actually act on that.
Yeah, and I think what it comes down to too is it's going to be done differently in different places. We could say since democracy came into the light that things have gotten worse because we've seen much larger scales of conflict. You look at World War I and World War II as just primary examples. So, but I think there's going to be different parts of the world. There'll be the Australias, but then there'll also be places that are much freer, and it's going to be interesting to watch it play out. For sure. But I think ultimately, what's going to happen is, the central planners are going to fail because it always fails. It's just a really poor system. Things have to be done in a decentralized manner. And over time, that's where it's going to get. But there's going to be this period of flux as people are trying out different forms of governance where they're, trying to use these AI social credit systems to run and manage society, I think it's going to fail. I don't think like we're ever going to be capable of having a computer that's so incredibly smart. It's going to be able to manage all of these different people. Not at least for like 100, 200, 300, 400. I don't know how long, if ever, but yeah. Man, we're having a pretty brutal argument going on in the chat right now.
I didn't catch quite all of it, but
are there? Yeah,
Zorn and/or 12. If you want to jump in the spaces, feel free.
So
if you want to elaborate,
yeah, kind of going back to what 12 was saying, he doesn't buy the idea that Bitcoin will be the only money, and that's definitely like an interesting one. Nick Bhatia kind of talks about that in Layered Money a little bit, how there might be different monies. We're gonna see side chains on Bitcoin. We already have side chains. There's this whole discussion of drive chains, which Skeef and I are kind of against that topic, but there's some people that are for it. So there's going to be a lot of different experiments that are had, and it's going to be interesting to see. One community that I'm a part of, or kind of on the outside of, and observe, is this community that believes that everything digital is evil and bad, and that the solution is like local currencies. Kind of the same idea as like going back to silver and gold, but having it issued by like private bank or private organization on a more localized level. So I think we're going to see that stuff talked about for sure, or at least implemented, but I don't think it's going to work very well.
Yeah.
You got any thoughts on localized currencies?
Not particularly. I mean, there's a lot of, I don't know. Like I could see a situation where there's an extended amount of time where there's other Bitcoin backed currencies, things like that could develop. It seems to be like historically, it does seem that money's something of a winner take all. Is that 95.5, 98.2, 99.1, 80.20? I don't. That's a lot of projection out into a future that I don't have very much information about.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, this brings me up to the topic of the shitcoin of the week.
Oh, yeah.
Francis Suarez is launching Miami coin.
We have a buddy who's real heavily involved in all this stuff going on in Wyoming, and he was at the hackathon this weekend and was talking about how everybody was just so happy about Miami coin because they're in Wyoming. They're like, oh, thank you Miami for taking yourself out of the running for being a Bitcoiner place. Like, we got this. Like, between Texas and Wyoming, like we want to be. I mean, Texas is bigger, obviously, but Wyoming's a good spot. It's a great state. I know a lot of good people out there.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a pretty bad idea. I looked at it briefly, and like the whole concept of it is like anybody can mine it, which I think is a horrible idea. I mean, if you're going to run something like that, it needs to be a federated system so that it's not as easily co-opt. I mean, just, I wonder what the mining algorithm is going to be. Yeah. It's going to get 51% attacked pretty quick.
Yeah. Ben the Carman had a good tweet today that I should just look it up and read it, but it was something to the effect of AWS, Amazon Web Services, has all the, let me just look, I'm going to fuck it up because he worded it perfectly. I just need to find it.
Congratulations on ratioing, Ben. That was pretty funny.
He's one of my favorite people. He's fun.
Yeah, Ben is one of my favorite people on Twitter. I unfortunately haven't met him yet, but
you don't want to meet him. He's a little smelly.
Here's the tweet from Ben Carman. AWS is the cheapest and fastest Bitcoin sidechain. It has better uptime than all smart contract platforms and the same censorship-resistant properties. And he said it also supports many more programming languages. And that, I don't know, a lot of people, I don't know.
Isn't that the truth?
Oh no, it's like, absolutely true. It's 100% true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's like all these people working on shit coins and these BIP 300 types or whatever. They don't like that kind of stuff. So they're like, no, Amazon's bad at centralized. Yeah, no, so is your thing. It's like, but that like the super smart line that I particularly liked is he says, and
the same censorship resistant properties, because, you know, anything on AWS, you know, if Jeff Bezos wakes up in a bad mood, you're done. I mean, that's like that's one thing you know, when I have the misfortune of talking to an Ethereum person, that's what because my background is that kind of stuff, you know, like cloud infrastructure, software development, that kind of stuff. And, you know, just kind of walking them through how a minor little policy change at Amazon could nuke all these companies. I mean, it's like, and it wouldn't even, you know, they're not even resistant to the state. I mean, they're not even, you know, let alone not being resistant to the state. They're not resistant to one random company. And, you know, it's, I don't know. There's a lot of people that don't realize that. I mean, like all these major nodes, these Ethereum nodes, they're all on AWS because, you know, it's like that's something Jimmy Song does a really, really good job pointing out.
Yeah.
Is that the people working on this are not technically competent. Like Vitalik is not a smart guy. Like these are not particularly intelligent, accomplished people. Like the people who are technically competent have already moved over to Bitcoin. I mean, like you talk to these people who, I mean, like one good exercise is to go through the process of just looking at what it takes to launch an ERC20 token. Like anybody who can fill out a Google form can launch an ERC20 token. It's hilarious. And it's like these people, you know, like they masquerade as the, you know, the technical geniuses building the new world. And, you know, the people working on Bitcoin are just a bunch of Luddites who aren't into new technology. And it's like, no, it's the people who have done the work to understand the trade-offs and understand how network security works and all these different important things. Those people are working on Bitcoin. They're not working on Ethereum because it's like they, you know, it's not hard to, you know, to see the flaws and how these things don't work. And it's like, and it's all that stuff compounds to make a situation where it's just centralized garbage. And, you know, you have Solana coming. I don't even know exactly what's different about Solana, but I know it upsets the Ethereum people because it's, I guess they view it as competition or something like that. And it's just these not terribly accomplished, not terribly bright people playing a bunch of stupid games. And so, I don't know, like kind of going back to the BIP 300 thing, you know, it's like that's one of the big selling points of BIP 300 is that, you know, Bitcoin is, you know, at risk of all this competition from altcoins or whatever. And it's like, that is such a profound misunderstanding of Bitcoin's value proposition, in my humble but definitely correct opinion.
Yeah. Okay, so Lurk's on it, per usual. Why isn't that popping up? Okay, so this is exactly what I was thinking.
Yes.
So we have another moronic shitcoiner to talk about this week. So, good old Rug Pal got roasted by Sailor, and it was absolutely amazing. I tried to go and watch the full video, and you know, for like the first hour and 20 minutes, it was Sailor bragging about how much Bitcoin he's bought, and then which he deserves. He's bought a lot of Bitcoin. Big dick Sailor. But yeah, and then they get to this point where Michael just lays out like, you're a fucking idiot, Ral. You
yeah, he said the only people that don't think these are securities are people that don't or the only people that think these are not securities is people who don't understand securities law. But
yeah, I mean it with a lot of these, you know, shit coins, it's interesting to look at, like, are they being are they doing this to like to hurt people, or are they just so incredibly stupid and incompetent they don't realize what they're doing? And it was interesting to watch Raul's response, because he's like, oh, there's this antiquated securities law, yada yada yada, and Sailor was like, no, it's pretty cut and dry, black and white. If you have a bunch of something and then you go and you try and dump it on retail, like, that's a security.
yeah.
So,
I mean, go over to Max Kaiser's Twitter. I don't remember what day he posted this. I think it was, what's today, Monday? So he posted maybe Saturday or Sunday. He just made a short, quick, like 1 minute video on making his own judgment comment on Raul's comment there. And he basically was saying that Raul is attempting to convince people to go back to the 1920s era, and of course prior to that as well, of the just asinine rule breaking and open door policy of your securities laws. What's the Howey test? That was done in like the 32 or something like that for the oranges thing. But Max does an excellent job on, very briefly, just slicing Raul Paul right down the middle of his neck, for just trying to convince people to say this is how securities, should operate. It's truly amazing that, for good or bad, I know. Going back to what you were talking prior of going live in Spaces here, I don't really know how to. The politicians have a love-hate relationship for me, but mainly hate, and that is somebody like a Gary Gensler. I did not meet him, but I did go to MIT and watch him talk in 2019. He really understands cryptography and how they can be applied into the financial market. And if somebody like that is sitting in that seat, and you are now sitting across the table from somebody like Raul and Michael Saylor, I think we clearly know what side he's going to pick. And then, Max and Stacey are just going to laugh their asses off at the inevitable comment that he'll make. But it's truly amazing how stupid these Wall Street people are. It is truly baffling.
Yeah.
How idiotic they operate.
Yeah. And I think it's important too, because it's like a lot of, like, Mark Cuban made this point, a lot of other shitcoiners made this point. It's like, oh, Bitcoiners are anarchists until the SEC get involved, and now there's, the SEC's their little attack dog. They're sicking on somebody else, and I think I can't speak for anybody else, but my interest in observing this phenomenon is, just like, we've known all along that these projects, if you want to come up with a nice word for it, have no state censorship resistant properties. Like, they have no ability to resist state censorship. And so for me, it's an observation of, okay, yeah, now, like, they're being censored by the state because they have no defenses against it. Like, that's just an observation. If I could burn the SEC in a literal fire yesterday so that it doesn't exist anymore, I would do that in a heartbeat. Like, I don't want these entities. I don't want them to exist. I don't want them around. Like, I'm not, cheering for them to go attack my enemies or anything like that. I'm observing that, these things are all set up in a way that they're extremely vulnerable to a state attack. And it's like, yeah, and now a state attack is coming. So what did you expect? And so to watch, all that to say, to watch Raul Paul squirm, and then when he tweeted his portfolio out, 5% Bitcoin, 70% Ethereum, 25% other, I was just like, oh my God, that is the most, like, I literally want to frame that and just, like, look at it periodically, because that's just beautiful. Like, knowing...
Make it as an NFT on Ethereum. That would be hilarious.
Like,
somebody else pay the fees.
knowing that an awful scam of a fraudster human being like him is about to get absolutely fucking wrecked is awesome. Like, I love that. I wish he didn't take so many people down with him. I wish he was just kind of off on his own island and got wrecked all by himself and didn't have all these people he was lying to about everything. But I don't know, take your wins where you can get them.
I kind of have a feeling that his Ethereum allocation is going to be a lot smaller here in the near future.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is just, we did our first episode on him.
One picture of Vitalik in handcuffs and that price craters.
We did our first episode on good old Rug Paul, an ICP token.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I wonder what that's trading at. I'm going to look that up real quick.
Lurk said, did you guys see the $23 million Ethereum trend? Yeah, that was, I believe that was Bitfinex. They had some Ethereum transaction where they paid a $23 million gas fee.
I think it was a small amount of Bitcoin too. It was like 100,000, right? Or
was
sorry,
it?
I think it was on
Ethereum.
a stable coin, I think.
On a
And,
stable coin.
yeah, they fat fingered the fees. The dude sent it back though. He sent like $21 million of it back.
Interesting.
That's what I heard.
Oh, but he kept the $2 million to
Wow.
process the transaction. I see.
Yeah.
However much, I don't know.
Yeah.
Really curious what ICP is trading at.
I just keep going back to the Satoshi line of, like, if you don't understand this stuff by now, I truly can't help you.
Mm-hmm.
And I thank you guys so much for doing the meetup and being on Spaces here and, you know, live streaming the channel, doing better for all my meetups that I run, you know, so on and so forth. But there comes a point where you just can't answer the same fucking question to the same new people every time. It's not only tiresome, but you are sacrificing your own time by exerting that energy so many times to the same mindset of people. So I appreciate when you do the recordings and stuff like that of just, you know, go and listen to this. I literally don't have time to tell you about this stuff. If you don't understand that DeFi is a scam to get your value, I'm not even saying money because it's not money. It's all token bullshit, leverage on top of other token bullshit. It's just all pyramid. And the problem is it works really well in bull markets. Everything pumps super hard.
Mm-hmm.
But we know at the end result, it's going to get you less Satoshis, and that's the opportunity cost. I have things to learn. I know everybody else in here has things to learn about Bitcoin. You don't have your multi-sig set up how you want. You're not running a 10 Bitcoin lightning node or something like that, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
How do you you know, you kind of say it in a polite way, but also, you know, to the point being an asshole. I literally can't help you if you don't understand this. If you want me to sit down and talk with you, I need you to send me $100,000 check right now, and I will go and meet with you after that check clears, and I have purchased Bitcoin with that. Then I will come and sit down with you, and I will probably leave it to 4 words and say, have fun staying poor. 25, 50, 75, 100,000 a pop. Let's fucking go.
And one approach I'll take that's slightly more generous than asking for $100,000 check is like give somebody a little book to read. Like Little Bitcoin book is a good one. If you're talking,
of course.
Yep. Jimmy Song's another one that, yeah.
He's the co-author of that
I
book.
just don't have anything bad to say about that guy. I
Love that guy.
I love Jimmy Song so much. Had the pleasure of, being able to talk to him in person a couple of times. Like that guy's, you talk about just an awesome human being, an awesome Bitcoiner. That's Jimmy Song. So that one's a good one. Another of his, like if you're talking to somebody who's particularly religious, Thank God for Bitcoin. That's another fantastic one. There's different stuff. Like Stefan Livera just had Guy Swan on, and it's a really, really, really good intro podcast.
That was a great episode. Everybody needs to go listen to that.
Yeah, and so like something I'll do is I'll say, hey, look here, and I always have 4 or 5 copies of Little Bitcoin book, and I'll if I'm at a party or whatever, yeah, I'll talk about Bitcoin. I love talking about Bitcoin. I'll talk to anybody. But if it's like starting to get into, well, I heard it uses too much energy. I heard the government's going to shut it down. Like I'll say, look, here's a book. It's like 120 pages. Read through this. Let me know what you think about it when you're done. And then if they actually care, they'll read 120 pages. If they can't read 120 pages, then
stay stupid.
What are we doing here? Yeah, stay dumb. Yeah, that's the, that reminds me. Bitcoin Kindergarten. Look them up on BTC_kindergarten. They host,
great group.
Yeah, they host a Wednesday night. I've been to probably 50% of them the last few months or so, especially. I went to a bunch when they started and then didn't go for a while. But yeah, fantastic group. If you're free on Wednesday nights, definitely check them out. Join the Discord. It's just a good group of people, and that's that whole thing. And that's a very that's a fantastic environment to kind of talk through or send people. Like the whole idea is it's just helping people understand Bitcoin a little bit better. And they're all a bunch of just wonderful, beautiful, toxic motherfuckers, and it's fantastic. Love those guys. Optimus, everybody else over there.
Yeah, I loved last week's Bitcoin Kindergarten.
Yeah,
that was great.
was
Great
so fun.
crew. Lark was in there dropping
Yes.
some bombs. And then another good resource too to some people too is get them away from Altcoin Daily and all those bullshit channels and get them over to Simply Bitcoin. We've got Kanikarus, who's one of the hosts of that in the spaces. That I think is like a great one because like a lot of people are interested in the news. They're interested in they do a really good job of covering these topics, explaining the scams. I mean, there's so much good content out there, you know, and so it kind of depends on the person's learning cycle or style. But yeah, I mean, I've gotten a lot more impatient over the years to like sit down and explain to somebody why Bitcoin isn't boiling the oceans or why, you know, these shit coins are a scam. I you know, will give short, blunt answers and, you know, if people aren't willing, you know, it's like, okay, stay stupid, you know. I'm not going to hold your hand and, you know, explain to you why Dogecoin is not going to be the money of the future. Like, I just don't have the energy to do that versus, like, going to places where there are people that have the willingness to learn. So it's my approach, at least.
Yeah, we did not have this type of content available in, I'm not even going to say prior to 2013, but like 2014, 2015 and stuff. Like if you were around then, we did not have anywhere near this type of content. The Bitcoin podcast scene didn't really come on, I would argue, until maybe probably like end of 2016, 2017, realistically. I know John Vallis did a couple episodes in like 2015, and maybe there was one or two, you know, just kind of mentioning it, you know, prior to that. But the videos, and we really, you know, thanks for bringing up Simply Bitcoin. Shout out to Nico and Quinicarus. They really, I guess I would say, besides, you know, you guys, myself, and whoever else is trying to put up YouTube videos from meetups and as groups, Bitcoin Kindergarten as well, like nobody was really putting out Bitcoin only content on YouTube. YouTube is a cesspool for just crypto bullshit information. It's so difficult to bust through that. But if anybody else is interested too, for daily news, check out Bitcoin and podcast by David Bennett. He has been putting out tremendous news in a good 40, 60-minute feed, and you can stream him sets as well. He's on Podcasting 2.0, blah, blah, blah. But that's another great resource. But we are so blessed. Like the pre-coiners that are coming in today, like there's so much information available, guides, interviews, podcasts, books, you know, just general content. It's truly a blessing to have.
Rabbit Hole Recap, another good one out of Tales from the
Crypt.
RHR. Matt and Marty, love those.
Subscribing to Bitcoin Hands right now.
Yeah.
I'm a almost daily viewer of Simply Bitcoin.
Do they do it every day?
Almost every day.
Oh, wow.
I forget.
Almost every day,
Yeah.
Huh.
No, it's great. It's like a mid-morning ritual for me. I watch the Ron Paul Liberty Report, and then I watch Simply Bitcoin.
Nice.
And shout out, I don't know if he's still there. I'm not looking at my phone, but again, shout out to you, Captain Youth, for putting out Bitcoin music. I know other people are doing that as well. You know, but that's another thing that we didn't really have prior to, I don't know, you know, 2017, 20, whatever. You know, so, you know, Bitcoin, just general content creators, especially artists and musicians. I know people have a love-hate with NFTs and all that other stuff, but, you know, just general Bitcoin art as well, whether it's physical murals or, you know, what Fractal and Crypt does on those ginormous monstrosity moving part stuff. I mean, when I 3D print, I view all that as art. You know, so just extrapolate that out to just content creators, musicians, you know, artists and designers, so on and so forth. Like, thank you. It's truly adding value to our space.
Yeah, big fan of Captain Youth. I wasn't paying attention to the spaces. I didn't know he was on. But yeah, he's got to hang out with him in Dallas at BitBlock Boom. That was a good time. Yeah, love that guy.
Kanikarus, what do you got for us?
Oh, not much. I've just been listening. I think this is so. Is this something that you do every week?
Every week.
Every Monday night.
Sweet.
We both live in Southern Arizona, so we decided to get together and hang out and shoot the shit every once in a while.
This is very cool.
Our goal of this was to talk Bitcoin and make sure that everybody gets hooked up with the future ex-wife.
So actually it's a good time for our fake sponsor, Dirtbags Bar, Tucson, Arizona. It's the #1 place to meet your future ex-wife. I've been in that Dirtbag group for a while, and I saw that there's a Dirtbags Bar in Tucson, and so I'm like, oh, that's got to be our fake sponsor. And I had a buddy in college who always used to say he went to a frat party. Like, I'm convinced he went to a frat party basically at least once a weekend in the entirety of college. And every single time he would say something to the effect of, all right, here we go. I'm meeting my future ex-wife tonight. It's going to happen. And so I thought it'd be a fun tagline for a silly little bar. It's right off campus, right by all the frat houses too. So it's if you are ever in Tucson, there's tons of better places to go. It's actually a pretty terrible bar.
It's a great place to go if you want to talk about climate change as well as like how to create a woketopia.
Yeah, if you want to be lectured by a bunch of 21-year-olds about how the world should work, it's a fantastic spot. If you're not into that, then DM me. I got some better suggestions.
Yeah.
So do you guys get because I see it's called call-in, so are there people throwing in questions and stuff like that in a chat somewhere? Or?
And we have a YouTube chat and then Twitter Spaces. So we tried a few different things for calling in, and Twitter Spaces was what kind of has worked the best so far.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with our stream, though. Our stream's getting all fucked up tonight.
Something.
Phil, I think you heard the calling. We were showing Simply Bitcoin as your daily news video feed that everybody should go watch. So I think your ears were burning.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Seriously, really appreciate all the love. You know, I mean, it's super it's like it's very humbling. That's the best way to explain it. You know, we just like you, right? Like all of us, we just, you know, we found Bitcoin. We understand what it means, you know, to us and what we think it means for the rest of the world. And, you know, so we don't all know how to write code. You know, we don't all know how to do that kind of stuff, but we can talk. And, you know, some of us are good at, telling stories or, you know, putting different narratives together to help people see the bigger picture. And it's, you know, like everybody's got to use this stuff, you know. I think we all have something to contribute.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's something we've talked about on here too, is like we're just trying to connect with other Bitcoiners and have a good time. And, you know, we'd rather have 5 awesome people in the chat than a million retards. And it's just, and that's exactly, you know, what we've got. It's a fantastic time. You know, it's like we just get to, even when, like, we had an episode a few weeks ago where we had quite a few disagreements about whether or not a person should be involved in politics or whatever. And it was all in good fun, because it's like, at the end of the day, you know, we're aligned on Bitcoin and we're aligned on, promoting human freedom and all these important things. And so whatever kind of little disagreements we have about strategy around the edges is just kind of a fun thing to talk about. So it's been a good time.
So
totally agreed.
We have Clancy in our spaces.
Yeah. We have Clancy in here, everybody. We need to sing Clancy happy birthday.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Hey, fuckers, what are y'all doing?
What's up?
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Clancy.
Happy birthday. Thank you, guys.
So what did Joe get you? Did he get you a 24 karat gold cold card or what?
No, he got me 10 miners.
Holy shit.
Oh, what a sweetheart.
That's
what
so
a
much
sweetheart. I hope they're not
cold
S9.
card.
He's a keeper.
Yeah.
They're definitely not S9.
What a sweetheart he is.
Nice.
Buying you some M31 plus pluses or some S19J Pros. Look at that.
Damn. Good.
Yeah, he got me some S19s because he loves me.
Nice. Good job, Joe.
Yeah, good job, Joe.
Good job, Joe. Look at that. Coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah, all my friends are like, "What the fuck?"
They just don't get it.
They're like, "You got what?" I'm like, "Money trees, bitches, money trees."
Exactly.
Right, you just don't get it.
I got fourth dimension money printers. You go sit in your little corner and play with your ESG shit.
Yeah. I got
Like,
miners that are profitable to 40 cents a kilowatt hour or whatever they're at nowadays.
Yeah.
That's
like, that's so sweet.
Nice. Well, good
What y'all
deal.
been talking?
We started out talking about how we want the government to default on its debt. I've been trying to figure out how long a government shutdown has to last before I get to go hunting in a national park. I really want to go hunting in Yellowstone, so that's something I've been trying to figure out for a while.
I just want to see all the freeloaders have to actually go and do something.
Yeah.
So a debt default would be fantastic.
I want to see Ted Cruz on the side of the highway with his hat out, asking for money.
Are you talking about like how long it's going to take for supply chains to collapse?
No, just politicians being destitute and homeless and miserable. And
Yeah, and like, what are we going to do with all these banks on the corners? Are going to make them bars?
We're gonna raise them and then do some community gardening. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I mean those vaults could be useful. Could use that. There's actually in a place called Clifton, Arizona. There's an old bank for sale. It's like $250K in this tiny little town.
We'll buy that shit.
It's already got the
with a vault.
Yeah, it's got the whole
Oh,
vault,
my gosh.
everything in the bottom.
What?
The town, it's basically the Arizona. I mean, if you look at the Zillow for Clifton, Arizona, you can find it. But it's way over on the New Mexico border. Ted Cruz is coming to Blockchain Summit in Texas.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you want to go and speak your piece to Ted Cruz, go down on, I think it's October 8th. I just got an email from Parker on that.
I'd probably get arrested if I had a conversation with Ted Cruz.
Yeah, let's just keep you in Twitter jail instead of real jail.
Hey, Keith, did you see what AK-47 got me for my housewarming gift?
Oh, no, I think I know what it did. Is it the Nicki Minaj flag?
Yeah, she got me a Nicki Minaj American flag. So I can fly it proud at my new house so my neighbors know where I stand.
That's awesome. I didn't realize that's who. I knew she got one. I didn't realize that's who she got it for. That's hilarious.
You think she got it for her?
I saw that she had ordered it. But that's funny.
So did you guys find a house yet there? Did you find somewhere that you want to live?
Our house in Arkansas went on the market this morning.
Nice.
So it's officially on the market, and now we're just, in that like panic mode where you have to sell your house before you buy a house, like that, like
Yep.
oh, everything's gonna be fine, but I'm fucking freaking out. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So no, we know like area we want to be in North Texas, but no, we haven't found anywhere.
And fuck Bank of America. I can't believe that happened to you guys.
Oh yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, y'all should have seen Joe losing his fucking mind in the Washington D.C. airport. I was like, this is so ironic. What is happening right now?
Dude, if that was on pay-per-view, I would buy it pretty much no matter what it cost.
I'm like over there getting crepes and like ordering. They have this like cute little crepe restaurant, and I'm like, Joe, look, crepes. And I see him over there, and he's like,
fuck Bank of America.
Motioning. Yeah, he's like, am I still your customer? Am I still your customer at this moment? And I'm like, who the fuck? Because he doesn't lose his cool, he's Joe, right? And he was fucking losing his shit. And I'm like, who's he talking to? And he's like, Bank of America just froze all of our fucking assets. I'm like, what? We're in the fucking airport. Like, we have no cash. So, it was classic.
That brings up an interesting point. I think it may be good to stash some emergency cash as just a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Well, we have some at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some at home, and we had a little bit on it. Like I had like maybe $100, but and then like it's so funny. He posted on Twitter, and like immediately everyone was messaging him like, "Hey man, can I send you cash?" Like everyone was so sweet, just responded immediately. And I was like, oh my God, our Twitter family's so awesome.
Yeah. Well, you guys deserve it.
Yeah, and things like Cash App debit card is a good backup too. Like something that's
Yeah, we have a PayPal one, so that was good.
Same idea. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
backup.
still.
Yeah, that's the problem with this like stage that we are all living with. It's you can't be, and I know I'm very fortunate to know people that are 100% in Bitcoin, but technically speaking, they're not. And even the ones that are just using it as a savings. We live in this very weird time where you're not on a Bitcoin standard, but yet that is the opportunity cost. So you do your absolute best to limit your exposure to the fiat dog shit, but also at the same time, that's how you pay your taxes. So it's just kind of like, just that.
It's like limbo.
Yeah.
It's like limbo.
Yeah.
And we're not going to dox his name, but Max and I both know somebody who's been 100% Bitcoin. 2019, I think.
Yeah, 2019 completely lived off of not just Bitcoin but Lightning.
Yeah.
Lightning.
So they only shop places that offer Lightning.
Well, more so he would use. So he had his node, and he was making payments from his Lightning node, and he would go and buy like a Taco Bell gift card on Bit Refill, and then therefore go and eat at Taco Bell.
God,
so it's that
awesome.
sort of thing. Yeah. But think about that. 2019, he did that for an entire year. How cool.
Yeah.
That's so impressive.
And he'll sell.
And it makes me feel like a lazy ass.
Well, his income's in Bitcoin also, so that helps.
And he does pay his rent in Bitcoin, of course, because you can use things like Fold and Bit Refill. He pays his, the small little. He doesn't have a cell phone, but the time that he does use, text message or minutes or something like that, you can go and top up, if you will.
This person's definitely single.
Yes.
Like, let's be real, y'all. Let's be real.
Yes, he is. He is. You know who we're talking about, but we won't dive into this.
I'll DM you who it is, Clancy. You definitely know.
Yeah, you know who it is.
It'll make sense when you tell me. I'm like, oh yes. That's
right. Exactly. Yeah, the moment that we tell you, you're like, I absolutely knew that.
Duh.
He made, and I love him so much. He just got some great news I think earlier this week, for building out a platform with some help. Shout out to him. But
shout out to the person that you can't talk about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can say it, but I know he wants to keep his anonymity, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he probably, and he would admit this, he probably has one pair of sandals. I bet he has 2 or 3 different shirts.
Oh my God, I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Love. He is such a sweetheart.
Yeah.
He has my heart. No homo. He's such a good guy.
I had to do some stuff with Ellen URL for work a while ago, and had never touched it, no idea what it was. And I messaged him and I said, hey, I know, and I knew him pretty well, but it's like I said, hey, I know you've got a business doing this. Let me just, whatever your rate is, let me buy some of your time, because it's gonna save me a ton of time learning this stuff. And he was like, didn't want to, because it's like when a person has a business, I did that kind of contract work for a long time, and you're constantly getting people asking you to do shit for free, and it's like that's his business. I'm like, no, I'm going to pay you, but it was almost like an argument, getting him to let me pay him for his time, because he was basically doing a one-on-one lesson on a bunch of stuff, answering a bunch of questions I had, tons of great information or whatever. And
but Keith, why is your mic so shitty?
Is it? I don't know.
Why do you sound like you're in a fucking can in 1984?
Is this any better?
Calling from a landline.
No? Oh, I don't know then.
No.
I thought you had a podcast.
I think the sound comes through Twitter Spaces, kind of weird.
Oh, does it?
No, you're lying, because we all sound fine.
I should have mentioned it in the beginning, but yeah, your audio on the.
So all your friends are in here just lying to you?
Maybe.
I guess I figured they were restreaming between YouTube and their thing. So whatever the restream thing was, it was dropping audio.
And there's also minors. There's also minors in the background.
That's
Oh,
a
that's
swamp
probably me.
cooler.
I apologize.
Yeah. That's my
I'll
swamp
mute
cooler.
myself.
No, you don't have to mute yourself.
I mean, I can walk into my. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I can open up the door. I don't know. Can you hear it, Ron?
I hear that now.
Yes, we can hear it.
There you go.
That sounds
Yeah,
like
we won't get any.
that sounds like a cyber hornet.
Yeah, I heard it the second I logged on. I heard it.
Yeah, I won't go any closer. It'll just rip everybody's ears off.
Nice.
Do you sleep near it?
Clancy, I leave my door open, the fans burning.
Oh my god, I'm sure you do. Is it
You
hot as
know
fuck
that-
in there?
Actually, it's not because it's cold.
Yeah.
But when I do, when it does get a little warm, I do open up the windows, and the AC sometimes still does kick on. So that is the problem.
Yeah, I don't think I could pull that off with my swamp cooler.
Yeah, you guys need to look at immersion out in Arizona.
Yeah.
Your immersion setup.
Yeah.
My Bitcoin, earning Bitcoin project is selling eggs. That's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
Did you just say selling eggs?
Yeah. Not like
You mean like
not like human eggs, chicken eggs.
I'm like, well, I mean,
Any
so what
eggs
makes sense?
Any eggs I
He's
can
just
get.
going up to his girlfriend once a month.
I'm like, they must be unvaccinated.
Yeah, you get a premium.
Yeah.
That was an interesting tweet. I forgot. I think it was Laser Hodl today that asked, "How do you prove that you're unvaccinated in the future?"
No, it was Francis Pouliot.
Oh,
Francis.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what like is it. Would
But how do you?
Yeah. Would
Oh they took an I know because I went and took an antibody test, and when they do it, it tests to see if there's mRNA in your system or if there's natural immunity. So it can tell you on an antibody test.
Gotcha.
Because that's fucking creepy. Why they would even have that?
Yeah.
In the first place.
I was talking to somebody recently, and they were basically giving me shit about eating mostly red meat. And they're like, well, doctors tell you to eat vegetables and legumes and all this stuff. I was so annoyed. And I said, yeah,
Were they a boomer?
No, they're actually younger than me, like 20s, something like that. And I said, yeah, they also tell you to sit in your house for 2 years and put Bill Gates poison in your arm. Like, these are the people you're listening to.
What did they say?
Like, well,
they don't know what to say when you say
Yeah.
like that. The conversation over.
Yeah.
I think a good baseline for who you're getting your medical advice from, you could start out by setting the bar at as long as they didn't have a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Did you see that video I posted where someone's asking him about it and he's so fucking awkward about it?
Yeah. I'm gonna put
Oh
that
my
in
god.
I'm gonna put that in the intro next week. I already have it saved.
It's pathetic. It's like you feel cringe for him.
He was like, the PBS reporter asked him what he learned from the relationship, and he said, well, he's dead.
Yeah, he literally said that and laughed and giggled. Everyone's like, what the
Oh my
fuck?
gosh.
He's like, he's dead, so you have to be careful. Like,
It's fucking creepy.
well, at least it was pretty transparent.
Have you seen
Like
that?
me and Skeeth know that these things happen, but when he says it out loud, it's like, oh my god, it's happening.
I think that's part of the whole deal, though, is that they put just enough out in the open to have everybody know that they're doing it. I think these people really get off on the idea that they can do evil things with everybody kind of knowing about it, and then gaslighting people. And it's like, there's nothing you can really do about it. We're just so powerful. We're gonna do whatever the hell we want.
And
Yeah, it's like when sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I definitely subscribe to that view that it also plays into their view of karma, that they feel like they're not culpable if they provide a certain amount of information.
Right. And also they're like psychopaths, like serial killers. Eventually, they always get caught because they have to. Their ego needs to be fed, so they have to tell people about it, or they have to keep something. They're always going to get caught.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective.
And Aleister Crowley is Barbara Bush's biological father. Look it up.
Yes, he is. No.
What?
Look it up.
Yes,
Really?
Look it
yes,
up.
absolutely.
I'm quoting Eddie Bravo right now. Look it up.
Oh my God! Look at the pictures of like Google Barbara Bush, Aleister Crowley, and look at the pictures of them like overlaid on each other.
Yeah, and like
That's gonna be chills down your spine.
Yeah, that literally just sent chills down my, like on my arms and shit while I'm thinking about that. That's crazy.
Yep.
That, oh my gosh, that's got to get him off so fucking good in hell wherever he's at. Like he made it into his fucking daughter made it into the White House.
Yeah.
Well, that's why like 11. That's why all of Aleister Crowley's numbers were so like significant in 9/11. They just used all his numbers and everything.
Yep.
Lurk in the chat says he trusts all of Clancy's conspiracy theories.
That's a good choice.
Who said that?
Young Lurk, BTC Lurk.
Yeah, it's a good. Listen, I'm a housewife. I do a lot of laundry. I listen to a lot of podcasts and do a lot of reading. Okay, so a lot of time on my hands.
You're on your shit, Clancy. You're on your shit. You know this stuff.
Yeah.
So many things clicked for me last week when Skeef sent me that. That was the first time I'd ever heard about that. It's pretty interesting.
Because it all, I mean, that the thread goes, I mean, it goes all the way from Aleister Crowley to 9/11 to what's going on with COVID. I mean, it's like these people, like 9/11 was planned before they even broke ground on the building. I mean, that's like all this stuff has been in the works for so long. And that it's like, you know, this whole idea that like 9/11 was a satanic ritual. It wasn't, you know, a freak accident. I mean, there's just, and that it's like something shifted. Yeah, like something shifted big time when they did 9/11. And that,
Keith,
like,
you know what I can't figure out?
What's that?
I can't figure out, like, okay, so we all know the Simpsons know everything, right?
Yeah.
But I can't figure out how the writer is tied into all this. Like, I know people say he's a time traveler and all this bullshit, but I'm like, I can't figure out, like, I can't find any good research on him, and he's so quiet. He's, like, lurking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have anything about that?
I don't, him just being in on it in some way and like part of that circle is my best guess, but I don't have a super strong view on how exactly that fits in. But
I need to research this. Guys, I'll work on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, come back next week with some detailed information regarding the writers on The Simpsons, where they tied in with 9/11.
It's not just 9/11, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's really fucking creepy.
Yeah, Simpsons have one hell of a accurate track record.
Yeah. A really good podcast, The Higher Side Chats. Clancy's the one that turned me onto that one. That's a fantastic podcast.
Yeah, I've been enjoying
The Higher Side?
Higher Side? Yeah. Like
Higher Side?
Yeah,
I'll check it
Higher,
out.
HIGH. So it's because the abbreviation is THC. So he mixes weed and conspiracies. But he is like not, like if you listen to him, you would not think that this guy's a stoner. I mean, he is.
No, he's really based. He talks all about like health and it's like, it's very full circle when you listen to it.
And like
covers all the bases.
He's built it up so that this podcast is like that's how 100% of his time is spent. And so he really puts a lot into it. It's a fantastic podcast.
Yeah,
There's doctors on there constantly.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
We've been pretty light on conspiracy theories recently. We gotta bring that back.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said that people were kind of like, he said that he was so sick of just like talking about COVID so much that he like needed to take a break from it. Which I don't blame him, you know.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I'm like tired of the vax and all that shit.
Yeah,
And it's
because
like-
we're all living in a psyop.
And it's like his audience already knew it. So it's like, oh, now it happened. We already fucking knew it's gonna happen. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty much. Babylon B. We were chatting Babylon B, but they did a really funny video this week about like some leftists that were really thrilled with the COVID restrictions that continued on forever, and it goes from them being forced to sit on their couches with masks to go into them being in their little matrix pods, and it's really funny.
Those guys are awesome.
They do some really funny videos. But yeah. Well, I think we're at just a little over 2 hours, so I think we're going to start wrapping up.
Are y'all recording?
Yeah, we put it on YouTube. It's a YouTube stream and Twitter Spaces and Twitch and.
Well, I guess I shouldn't have shut.
Let's
Drag it.
go.
Tucson does all the technical wizardry.
Well, you know, anything that you say, it's already being recorded anyways on Spaces and whatever. So
Yeah, I think we all figured out through Skeef that not only is Twitter watching every single character that you send and receive in your DMs, but also you are being recorded and therefore data stored on their servers for every time that we talk in Spaces. So
yeah,
wave to Jack and your CIA agent.
My last
I think
account
it's
got
funny
moved
that-
for telling a fun story in DMs. You know, thought I was just having a good time.
I think it's funny that people think that they live a private life,
yeah,
no matter what they're doing.
we're gonna get there though. We're gonna make privacy great again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of wins people can do, like using anything that uses local encryption is a massive win. Like anything that gets encrypted before it goes out into the ether. Bad word choice, but yeah.
A great Twitter account for privacy tips and weather reporting is Markets by Lily.
So, and also Matt Odell, and yeah, a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. Well, this has been a solid rip. I got some things wrapping up. So tomorrow night we have a Bitcoin meetup in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yep.
Which I think is going to be a good time. We're going to be having a Halloween party in Phoenix.
Is that 26th?
16th, I think.
16th.
It's Halloween, which is great. I like to be out on Halloween if I'm doing anything. Christmas party happening early December. I forgot what the date was. I'm not even going to say because I'd just be guessing, but that's happening in Orange County, which will be cool. There's going to be a few of us that make the pilgrimage out there. We had a great meetup.
I'll be out there.
Yeah, we had a great meetup in Sierra Vista last weekend. We're taking the route of being a little bit more underground out there and not necessarily posting it because there's already kind of an established group of pretty hardcore people. And I think that's, kind of a good way to go about it. I think it's kind of an interesting concept to be creating these underground cells of Bitcoiners getting together, and maybe the meetups can feed into that, but I think that's important with where we're going. They can still be infiltrated by feds, but I think it's a little bit safer. Yeah, you got any shout outs?
Shout out to the Rogers family. Love those people.
Yep.
Clancy and Joe. I own a PK grill now because of Joe Rogers, and it's just been a fantastic experience. My kids are eating tons of healthy food because I bought that PK grill, so that's a win.
Fuck the state.
I just want to congratulate y'all on ordering new microphones so you don't sound like you're in a fucking can.
All right, we'll do some testing after this.
I think the stream is fine. I think it's just
the spaces,
the way that I'm on Bluetooth through my soundboard, so maybe that's what the problem is. Maybe if I attached it via a cable, it'd be a lot better.
Okay, how are you streaming both to YouTube and to Spaces? What software are you using in between?
I have a Rodecaster, which allows you to pair your phone via Bluetooth, and so the sound goes into the computer, but then the sound also goes into the phone. So it's not necessarily, it's more hardware than software.
It's not working.
That might be your issue then, because that's probably.
Are they both exactly the same, or is one mic better than the other one?
No, you both sound like shit.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, both identical.
Okay.
Cool. Well.
He said cool.
Good feedback.
Hey, honest feedback.
Absolutely, we appreciate it. We'll work on it.
Of course.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
We've come a long way since week 1. I'll say that.
It's true.
If you go back and you watch our early streams, Clancy was there on the Discord when I had no idea what it was doing with it.
Yeah, I was like, I could like talk for some reason. Like my mic was just open. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to manage it. It's so much easier. To
You were the
manage.
guest.
Lurk says we sound great on YouTube, so everyone on Spaces, fuck yourself. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, trying to think if I have anything else. I think like in closing, we're winning. And I think that's important, you know, to preface like with how insane everything is. Like, you know, I think when you get around Bitcoiners and you get around people that have some attachment to reality, that have just an inkling of sanity, it's incredibly encouraging. And, you know, all the lemmings are running around, falling off cliffs. Like, you know, they can continue to do that. Let's stay away from them. Don't let them drag us off the cliff with them. Keep on doing this. But yeah. Well, thank you everybody who joined us in the spaces. Hopefully see you next week. Chat was solid. It was interesting watching.
I love y'all.
Fighting in the chat.
Hey, before we go and shop on orangelabel.co. Go and listen and watch Simply Bitcoin. Check us out at TabConf for E3D booth. What else? Go join your local meetup. Who else can I show in here? What else am I missing?
Hey, we're moving to Texas soon, so we're going to start all the parties, all the meetups.
Texas
North
LARP's on Liberty, but I'll be happy to visit you.
We'll see you in Arizona. Once you
Hey, go
realize
fuck
that.
yourself, Arizona.
Print guys.
Hit it, Alex.
What's that?
I said hit it.
Let's go.
I guess I'll end everything with this quote. If you haven't printed guns yet, you're not a real Bitcoiner. And that's
Let's go.
That's from Joe Rogers. But yeah.
True.
Thank you everybody.
All right, y'all.
Bye.
Peace.
Yeah.